There's a guy named von Braun that defined how NASA would assume space stations have to be done. There's two kinds of space station that NASA will acknowledge. Well, there's actually four. Two of them are related and technically impossible. One is von Braun. It's a bicycle wheel that spins. And NASA likes it because it's incredibly expensive and difficult to build. Because you have to build all of your infrastructure in a spinning thing, and that becomes really demanding on the engineering. Then you have the non-rotating capsule type, like the International Space Station. But there's and then there's the Dyson stuff, which is super solar system sized engineered constructions. They like those because they're never going to happen. A Dyson sphere is defined by a sphere that encompasses a whole star. Like the diameter of the Earth's orbit all the way around a whole star. And Dyson ring's just a ring that's the same size. But there's a whole nother kind. We have to have centrifugal force in order to be healthy. We don't need centrifugal force for a whole lot of things like shielding, like propulsion, like a lot of our hydroponics or aquaponics, our plants especially. A lot of those plants don't actually require any gravitational or centrifugal force at all. The proof is NASA has already grown lettuce on the International Space Station. Yeah, and made a big deal about eating a leaf of it. That proves that you can grow lettuce without centrifugal force or gravity or anything. Okay? So what if you built your centrifugal living space in a minimal engineered structure that doesn't have to include all the mass of the shielding or the water processing or the hydroponics or all the systems you can exclude from that spinning thing, you put on the outside. Okay? Like a big bubble, and on the inside, completely separate, except for the axle, you have essentially a Ferris wheel. And you live in the Ferris wheel. And anytime you want, you can climb a ladder or a staircase to the hub, where it's easy to go out the axle without being flung around, right? And then you can doodle around in microgravity, or you can go to another centrifuge that's spinning at a lower speed at half a G, or 3/4 of a G, or more than a G, depending on what you want to do. So you can have mixed centrifugal environments inside of a microgravity environment in a bubble or a foam, which I'm calling stellar foam. I'm working on how to define the invention of what that actually means. If you take foam rubber, right, it's basically a whole bunch of what they call cells, and each of the cells is 1/64 of an inch or smaller, right? You go to the ocean and you see sea foam. Each one of those is an inch or 3/4 of an inch. So the scale of the cell doesn't matter, does it? Just that you have a whole bunch of cells that are basically the same size and a little bit flexible. So what if you have cells in space that are 30 feet per cell, and each one has a membrane? So if you pop one, you don't lose air pressure from all of them. And then you can just continuously expand your foam. You can have a space station that's 1,000 miles in diameter.
This is a good idea.
It's not even hard to figure out once I describe it. And you can put stuff wherever you want. You're going to find that you have to balance the centrifuges to spin. Every centrifuge, you're going to have an equal and opposite centrifuge in mass equal and opposite in rotation, because of sympathetic motion. If they're all spinning the same direction, the station's going to start doing this. unless you want that.
Probably throw up.
The throwing up part depends on the diameter. If your centrifuge that you're in is small and you're at 1G, your head is spinning at a significantly different rate than your feet,
Oh.
which isn't really that super bad, but there's some potential that we're going to learn some stuff about medicine that way, right? But if you have a disc or a cylinder that's very large diameter and it's spinning at 1G, then your head and your feet are not that much different in speed. Because the fraction of how close they are to the axle isn't that much. You could have a cylinder inside that foam containment that's a mile in diameter and 16 miles long and spins at, say, 1.6 G sea level air pressure, and you could fly under your own strength with wings. You could climb into wings and fly like a bicycle, like you're going to ride a bicycle. You could have battery-powered fans in a backpack in microgravity taking care of your gardening, and just fly around like a bug in a breeze. Yeah, and that's what I imagine in space. You imagine how a kid, you take twin brothers, right? And at infanthood, you leave one on Earth and you put one in my environment that I've described. This multi-G environment where up and down and forward and back and rotation and all these things are all very different. Now, how is and we know that as a child develops, their brain connections are still forming, right? And you do a brain scan of both twins. The spatial centers of the brains are going to be visibly different. You're going to see it on the EEG. You're going to see it in the brain scan. They're going to learn stuff and have a perspective about physics that no one on Earth has ever had.
It'd be hard to find someone who is willing to donate their twins. Like, how cool.
Well, I could see it happening in family court. Right? Like you got one spouse is going to space and one staying in Texas, and the court says, okay, we're going to give one twin to the mom and one kid to the dad.
It's so messed up. I mean, it would be really interesting to observe the differences.
What about, you have some couple from a third world country that marries at 15 years old and takes a job in space in a ore processing city, right? Like I described, right? And of course, she's going to get pregnant, and God bless her. And it's all going to be healthy because of the G forces that are available enough to keep her bones strong and her heart circulating right and all this kind of thing. How is that child's brain going to develop differently? People ask me, they'll say, what's up, right? And what does that mean to you? How does that translate? Translate what's up.
What's going on with you? How are you doing?
Yeah. But if you take it literally, you say, well, up is out, down is in. We live on a ball. But what if you're in a centrifuge in space?
You have a totally different perspective.
Up is in, down is out.
Yeah.
You live in a cylinder.
Yeah. Be very. They think completely differently than me.
You look up and you'd see your neighbor across the cylinder or wave at you. They actually showed it in a movie once. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, it's crazy to think of the future for Hollywood with like what all is possible.
Yeah.
Like it's very easy to just see what we have here and to like what you're saying to live in that box and like this is what it is and it doesn't expand like past this.
imagine London right before Columbus landed on the beach, like the day before London, or before he landed on the beach, right? That's basically where we are with space. We've landed on the beach, and everybody's heard about it, but they don't really, not in my lifetime is a total quote from like lots of people.
Yeah, definitely.
But imagine the day when their neighbors in London start moving to America,
Yeah.
right? And like ending up with big land and stuff, and fighting with some of the natives and making deals and marriages with some of the natives. That's what it's going to be like when we have shipping companies established making trillions of dollars shipping stuff back and forth between the moon, Mars, and Earth. On that note, I'm going to wander off. It's been a super pleasure.
Yeah, we need to catch your name.
Darren.
Darren.
Yeah, please subscribe to my YouTube channel,
What's your channel?
American Nomad News. And I warn you, it's terrible.
That's awesome.
And I'm going to try and broadcast this. It might take forever to get that on YouTube
That's okay.
because the bandwidth on my cell phone is based on $20 a month that I'm pretty sure I don't have. But when I get a chance, I can upload it. My most recent one was a very short clip that's based on a cardboard sign I held up about not drinking and driving or texting and driving.
Oh, nice.
I did a public service message while flying a
Oh, I
sign.
see it. Is it the turn off the phone to make up away and have a happy holiday?
Please like, share, and subscribe.